Hi everyone. Today I am practicing Chopin Etude Opus 25, number 11, better known as the Winter Wind Etude. It begins like this and ends like this. What happens in between? Well, lots and lots of notes and quite a bit of power and stamina are required to play it. But those lots and lots of notes are organized into a certain structure. And each section further divides into phrases with a set of technical challenges that are repeated throughout. Understanding this overall and phrasing structure will not only help you with learning and memorization, but also you'll be able to apply and adapt a problem-solving idea to the repeated problems. Okay, let's get into it. Use overlapping legato for the beginning. In overlapping legato, you're literally overlapping two notes to connect them, like I'm doing here. This looks quite a bit different and sounds different from just lifting my fingers to play the next note. In overlapping legato, I lift a finger after I press the next one. The theme is now harmonized. Be sure to keep your fingers firm but arms relaxed. When you let your fingers loose to play pianissimo, you do not have precise control over your notes. It may seem counterintuitive, but your fingers need to be like steel to play quietly. Limp fingers look like this. I have to try so hard to control the volume with my arms and wrist, and some notes are actually not sounding. The last joint at the tip of your fingers are straight when your fingers are playing with focus sound. After the introduction, things change, to say the least. The left hand states the theme, while what the right hand is doing is really nothing short of mad and fanatical. Two hands are doing totally different things, and we need to hear both the authoritative rhythm of the left hand and the craziness of the right hand. The right hand's fast notes, the sextuplets, delineate a chromatic descending line. The challenge is, of course, is in the speed and to a certain extent power. If you were to play this at a moderate tempo, then my advice would be to simply let your wrist and arms relax so that it allows you to give extra power to each finger. But we are not planning on playing this at a moderate tempo. You have to think of lateral movement. We simply do not have the time to listen to all of the fast notes. Learn the notes, practice them slowly, and be comfortable playing them. But don't practice this with your right hand moving side to side because that is simply not the way you will play it in tempo. In the next 4 bars, we face another technical challenge of moving up and down the keys with very fast notes. Thankfully, there is a pattern, so recognize them and practice them in blocks, and practice moving your arm laterally instantaneously. This first one is actually not so tricky. As you know, this is repeated again and again. I will talk more about it in the later sections. Okay, let's talk about phrasing a little bit. It is really easy to make each first beat sound exactly the same, precisely because of the rhythmic pattern in each bar. If you just play the left hand, you will hear the harmonic movement toward E major. Starting after the introduction at measure 5, it's an 8-bar phrase moving from A minor to E major, which should come down towards the middle with this diminuendo and then go back up in intensity. Too often, I hear students emphasize each beat in the left hand, like this, as if there is no movement in harmony. I'm sort of exaggerating it here, but listen to the left hand's line rather than the specific notes or beats. In this score and on my edition as well, there is an accent on the octave A's, and I believe this is Chopin's own marking. So that's another reason not to accent the downbeat the same way every bar. Okay, moving on, the next 10 bars start the same way, and they're very similar to the first half of this A section we are in. But because of the harmony, which is now moving away from A minor to C major, the drama and the emotional affect are weakened. So I would not play this section with the same kind of sound, even though they pretty much look the same on the page. But the technical challenge is definitely similar. Again, know the pattern the right hand's notes are creating. Play them in blocks. If you don't have large hands, you may be surprised at how much of a stretch it is for your hands, and it is important to know and get used to how it feels. Since your thumb needs to be playing the B flat, which is a black key, your hands need to be inside the keyboard. And if your fingers are on the thicker and fatter side, you may have just enough space between the black keys to fit in your fourth finger. Here I am trying to show you how flexible my arm needs to be in order to move between octaves and to play widely spaced rolled chords. Even for these trumpet calls on C's in the left hand, it sounds much more rhythmic and resonant when you apply arm motion rather than trying to articulate the rhythm just with your fingers. Again, the left hand's bass line is the harmonic foundation, delineating a chromatic scale and cadencing in C major. C, C sharp D, E flat E, C F, G, and then cadencing in C major. Now we are in the second major section in E minor. This section begins the same way, and later Chopin weaves in new tunes and explores different harmonies. This part is not any more difficult than the A minor section in the beginning, but just remember the lateral movement, listening to the chromatic descending scale and not individual notes. So again, the idea of learning the hand position, practicing them in chords, and opening and closing your hand instantaneously all apply here. I was doing the written fingering, which is 1 on that black key, so I'm so used to doing it, but I think 2 makes more sense actually. I will have to practice it. This particular one is all black keys, so you just have to be aware of it. Your fingers can slip down if you're not careful. I realize I keep saying be aware of this and that, but some technical difficulties can easily be overcome by being aware of exactly what is difficult. This is still in E minor, but it is a weaker one than the E minor we started with because of the right hand's first note, C. So far we had 8 bars and 10 bars. Then in the B section, 8 bars and 10 bars, which started the same way. But the 10 bar phrase is always weaker harmonically than the first 8 bars. So even though each beginning looks almost the same on the page, how you begin each phrase and the intensity you maintain throughout it can be interpretive and start to tell a story, or simply be a vehicle for a technical exercise. The notes are a handful, but it is important to stand back sometimes from the crowded notes and gain an understanding of structure and phrasing so that the music does not just stay static. This is also a bit of stretch for my hands, so I'm taking note of it, and I don't try to connect the notes at all. In fast tempo with pedal, it really won't matter. Left hand is tricky here. Again, you need to listen to the line and not the individual notes. Think lateral movements. I think it is slightly easier when the wrist is a little bit higher. And in terms of getting two hands together, be able to play the left hand in tempo and check with the metronome on this and practice it this way. Play it in tempo, but stop at the first note of the next beat and make sure you're ending there together. Know which finger in the left hand lines up with the chord in the right hand. In general, this is a good way to practice wherever your hands feel out of sync. We are in A flat major here, and the tune in the left hand is a more melodic version of the main theme. The top line is also ascending in the major scale. It would make musical sense to play the left hand's tune with a little more melodic feel. It's the same dotted rhythm we have been hearing all along, but the same rhythmic figure can sound authoritative and strict, or more tuneful when you bring out the contour of the melody. Then the left hand's new theme here is more urgent and threatening, which immediately changes the mood. Part of the drama is in the opposing direction of the notes, right hand going up and left hand going down. You have to be aware of it and anchor your core so that with a strong core, both of your arms can be free to move away from it. I kept missing notes here and I couldn't figure out why. And later I realized that the leap was actually an 11th, which is a big jump for my hands. trying to hold on to the bass while playing the other notes, and you can see that I'm missing the G and it is not as powerful as it can be. So I think I'll consider just leaving the pinky. The pedal has the bass covered, so if it is a stretch for you, just leave the bass and go for the power in your melodic notes. The rests here should not be a place of relaxation. Moments of silence can be as intense and nervous as the most dissonant chords, and you should experiment with the timing. For maximum drama, listen to the descending chromatic line and delay the crescendo. Where you see the crescendo marked should be the softest, and I would actually stay pianissimo in this bar and delay the start of the crescendo till the next bar. And this leads us back to the A section. And as I am listening to myself play, I'm realizing that my tempo is a little more on the stable side. I would actually prefer a faster tempo, which I will have to practice for. By the way, don't kill yourself to get to Chopin's metronome markings because they're not always reasonable. I know that I'm backed by a lot of capable pianists on this view, and very few pianists play at the metronome marking given by Chopin. This is the last tricky part of the etude. The B is repeated on fingers 4 and 1, and your hands have to open up instantly to reach over a ninth. Coming down is also a stretch for my hand, and opening and closing of the hand have to happen so quickly that it should feel like the two are happening almost at the same time. And I know that my fourth finger is even weaker when my thumb needs to stretch down an octave, so I take mental note of it and practice it this way. This is just really tricky. Most of your power should come from your left hand, and the right arm and wrist should be free to change position quickly, and not worry too much about playing loud. As we are approaching the end of the etude, you may be losing your stamina, but just stay with it. And right here, right before you play the downbeat, relax and drop down. Let me rewind a bit. For power, I just play all the bass notes with the edge of my pinky rather than the fingertip. I don't worry about connecting the notes in any way and let go of my arms so that my entire arm weight falls on the edge of my pinky. Almost no pedaling here because we are in a very low register and we want the articulation of the staccato to be clear. These chords are so satisfying to play at the end of all that craziness. I would try to have the theme come out in both hands. So not just the top A, but E, F, E, D, E. You have the notes in both hands, so it's not so difficult to have them project. You can experiment with thumb or pinky on the last note, but for me, pinky combined with arm weight is just as powerful as my thumb. It also feels safer than changing to thumb, so I think I'll stick with my pinky. There is actually one more reason that I just thought of. There are times where a physical gesture completes the drama created by sound, and this gesture of my hands flying away only works when I don't change to my thumb. So that seals the deal for me. That's it for this video. See you in the next one.